Okay, this is the Williamson County Board of Commissioners meeting December 8th at 10 a.m. Roll call, please.
Jim Marlowe.
Present.
Brent Gentry.
Present.
Tim Addison.
Present.
Okay, do we have any old business first? If not, moving on to new business, we have the final budget, the 2021-2022 budget. If there's no questions, I just need a motion to approve the final budget.
Make a motion to approve final budget.
Second.
Jim Marlowe.
Yeah.
Brent Gentry.
Yeah.
Tim Addison.
Okay, the appropriations resolution. This is a resolution. Kim, correct me if I chop this up. I'm not a very good explainer on things like this, so I'll just admit that right up front. We have to have this resolution to appropriate the money in the budget to the different funds. Kim, is that a correct statement?
Yes, this annual spending limit, not just for the general fund, but all of the funds that you see there. And as you can see, it's, kind of a large sum of money, but that goes through all of the funds and their appropriations for the next fiscal year. If there's a need to spend beyond that, then there would need to be a revised budget and a revised appropriation if you need to.
We did that once before. I think we did budget
Yeah.
half year. All right, so I just need a motion to approve the appropriations resolution. Resolution number 21-112-08-122.
Make a motion to approve resolution 21-12-08-122.
Second.
Jim Marlowe.
Yay.
Brent Gentry.
Yeah.
Tim Addison.
Okay, the next one is the statement of tax levies. Kim, I'll let you do the explanation of this.
Sure. This is the annual statement of tax levies that would go down to the county clerk's office before the last Tuesday in September. And this levy reflects the 8% increase, which matches the newspaper notice that you did for the truth and taxation hearing. And so this is what the county clerk will levy. However, your increase will actually be limited to growth plus CPI. So we know, that's going to be a lesser number. And so when looking at the tax levies, you're going to see higher amounts there than we actually budgeted. We budget based on real life, the growth of CPI, the 3.4%. The levies reflect 8. So sometimes people forget that and they think, oh, we should have gotten so much more money, or, the numbers don't match. But that's why you levy much higher, hoping to gain any ground you can, but then we budget realistically.
Because if we lose the new growth, then it's gone forever.
Yes, you can't come back next year and say, oh, I forgot to do that, or I didn't grab that in time. It's just gone.
Okay. So then what we need now, if nobody has any questions, just a motion to approve the statement of tax levies.
I make a motion to approve statement of tax levies, resolution number 21-12-08-123.
Second.
Jim Marlowe.
Okay.
Brent Gentry.
Yeah.
Tim Addison.
Next item on the agenda is the abatement of the jail bond abatement for 2021-2022. Tim, I'll let you talk about this as well.
Sure. When we did the jail bond, there is a portion in the jail bond document that explains that the bond will be paid with a tax levy as a secure funding source. And that's sort of what we're talking about when you're talking about some new funding for a project, where if you're doing any type of debt, that you want a secure funding source. And so that is in the bond document as a fail safe as a backup to make sure that if there's a year in which you do not have enough money in your general fund to make the bond payment, that the county clerk will levy a tax. So in any year that you say, hey, I've got enough in my general fund to make that payment, we don't need to levy that tax. Then you fill out this particular bond abatement form and you give that to the county clerk's office, and they will not extend that tax levy. Now, this document reflects the refinance that you did. So the previous bond abatements referred to the RDED bonds and the BAB bonds, but this reflects your new financing structure that you just did at the end of last fiscal year, start of this fiscal year. It's important to do this document each year If you don't, if you forget to do this document, the county clerk will extend the levy, will file a levy for that particular bond. So again, this is a document signed, this is filed. I think the county clerk gets these through March, so it's not as sensitive on a timetable as the levy, but it is an important document to get filed.
So then we just need a motion to approve the jail bond abatement.
I make a motion to approve jail bond abatement resolution 21-12-08-124.
Second.
Jim Marlowe,
Yeah.
Brent Gentry,
Yeah.
Tim Atkinson.
Okay. Next item is the formal authorization letter to secure financing for the road project. I guess, actually, we're going to talk about this.
Yeah, I mean, technically, this is just a formality. When I received a directive from the commissioners to go ahead and send out requests for bids on this road project for the $13.4 million, I had a couple of the banks that asked if there had been approval, by the board for me to secure the finance. And I was like, well, it was discussed and it was, agreed upon, but I'm like, no formal, approval,
Letter.
in order to be able to give me, I guess, the authority to act on behalf of the county. So, I told them that we would go ahead and get that into the minutes, so in that way, if they were, to be
Sure.
audited, by their respective
That approved.
groups, then it would be covered. So, what I'm asking for is just approval, of the request for bid letter that I've, prepared and submitted and to allow, me to act on behalf of the county in this request.
Okay.
And I mean, you all have the letter that I sent out and everything in securing the financing with all the respective county banks that.
So I guess we can do this, just need a motion to formally authorize, actually send that letter to secure the financing for the road project.
I make a motion to what you just said.
Giving
The
him
bids aren't
authorization.
gonna come in until the 14th.
It's giving him authorization.
Prior to,
Yeah, it sounded like you needed that in time, so in that time. to do it.
I think one thing that's important is just that, on this road project, we all three agreed to pay for it with funding from the gaming revenue. Not, as we talked about before. Next week, I got a conference call with 3 or 4 people, I don't know, about the $10 million, so we'll see what they say on that.
The banks are aware that if that comes in, that there may be, we may be able to use her to pay it down, but.
Can you put the 10 down on the?
Yeah, we, in essence, okay, the way a construction loan works is you ask for the funds as you need them. You don't have to ask for them in any kind of particular increments, and you don't have to take out the full amount that you request. So if by some chance we make 2 draws, just for example, and we've advanced $5 million,
Right.
and then all of a sudden, the $10 million miraculously shows up and comes down to us.
Right.
We can then use that we can stop advancing the money and keep it at a $5 million balance, and then start using the $10 million that we would have towards the road project. So when it's all said and done, if everything works out perfect, and if Travis is able to keep it on that, $13.1 million, mark, no pressure. But, then we could take any additional funds that we have left over, actually apply it to the loan, and then we have whatever our end result would be to look at bonding. So we could be down to, $4 million, if that's the case. But if not, and the money doesn't show up, or we've already advanced the whole thing, and then the $10 million shows up, then we can take the $10 million and apply it as a principal payment on the construction loan, or the drawdown line of credit. And then that would lower our monthly interest.
Well, I mean,
until we were able
the
to
interest rates you're looking at is, oh my God.
Oh, they're great. I mean,
Unbelievable.
and it's really, and again, it's promising that we're gonna get to actually keep it, local and not have to, pay anybody outside, and we are getting extremely competitive rates.
Well, I told Deputy Governor yesterday, she called, and I told her, that I don't think we care when they get the 10 million figured out, if it's this year, next year, whatever. Let's go through the steps we gotta go through, and then once we get it, we can put it down on this.
Sure.
Because you just said we can put it right down on it. It doesn't matter to me if we get it this year or next one, it's got our name on it.
So what you're
Just get it.
saying is there's still a chance.
Oh, yeah, huge chance. Matter of fact, there'll be talk about it today,
Well, they'll,
out there.
that's what I'm kind of hoping for.
It's gonna,
Remember, even if the $10 million comes in after we're through this
Yeah.
temporary finance, construction financing, the bond will be built so that we can apply that money if and when it ever comes.
yeah, that's what I want.
After that, so, I mean, if we get the money, we're gonna be in good shape.
She said your
We're
name,
preparing for the worst. So
Right.
yeah, she said, yeah, exactly. She said your name is on it, and you're gonna get it, you have to go through the steps, you get 4 people, and then the governor will be here today, and then there'll be some talk after that.
Sounds good to me.
There'll
We're
be
gonna
some,
turn down money.
Huh?
That's why I would turn down money.
No, they wanna send it to us, we'll take it.
So, which.
Still need a
Did we
second.
vote on that?
I need a second.
what,
I made a motion.
what was the motion?
Giving him authorization to,
Oh, what you said.
Yeah, allowing me to be the representative.
Right.
What you said, I'll say.
That's what I said.
Yes.
Andrew said, he wants to say what you said.
To clarify, because the purpose here is to put this in the minutes for later review, you're giving the treasurer authorization to secure financing. That was the words that you used, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you're authorizing him to sign and execute any document on behalf of the county as well.
No, it should
No.
be to secure a request for bid of financing.
Okay.
That'd be the
To
process.
secure a bid.
Yeah.
Okay,
This is so that he can.
So that-
Communicate with the
clarifies.
banks in order
That's-
to provide us a
That's what
funding
this is.
source.
Because I don't, yeah.
and I understand what the
Yes,
purpose
sure.
was, but if we're wanting
Yeah.
to just be clear,
Got it.
So do I need to restate that motion?
Which one?
Do we need to
It was
restate?
just
the motion?
clarifying, yeah, I would.
We never took a vote, so.
Okay, so I make a motion to authorize Ashley to secure
A bid,
the
financing of the road project.
of the road project,
Period.
period. Is that?
Thumbs up,
Yes. That covers it.
and I'll second it. Thumbs up came up, and I'll second
Okay. Jim Marlowe.
Yeah.
Brent Gentry.
Okay.
Tim Atkinson.
Yeah. All right,
All right, we got
that
that.
T is crossed and that I is
All
dotted.
right. Next, we got on here approval for the use of comp time for EMA director.
I think Travis said something.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you want to ask Andrew or that on that letter?
Oh, yeah, oh, okay, bring that up. I forgot all about that one, yeah.
So the email, as far as the whole resolution for funding for the Walker's Bluff project, that email sent, have you had a chance to review that?
I go with no, apparently, because I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about.
Who's it from?
It was from me. I don't recall the date, but I can probably find it.
Travis, can you find that so I can look that up on the email?
On the sales tax exemption?
No, that's another issue
Okay.
that Kim and I are working on.
I was gonna say, while we're on that issue, I know you sent that email to me and Kim. Unfortunately, I have zero specialty regarding tax.
Yeah, she's checked, we're gonna get a phone call with, Department of Revenue, and get that looked at.
Resolution clarifications for the road infrastructure.
That's it.
Okay. All right. I will,
December 1st, day on that, yeah.
okay, yeah, I will take a look.
So the all
I've been shot 3 times, so.
You find it in December 1st.
December, yeah,
Yeah.
December first. Which one of those attachments was that?
Well,
This is the one where Baxter sent over the questions, and these are your responses.
these are my proposed responses.
That's from our meeting we had.
Mhm.
It's quite lengthy, but Travis, you did a good job for 4 or 5 hours, put that together.
Yeah,
I think you opened up with saying, you missed it,
I'll
Andrew.
look at it.
Okay.
Basically, it's
I
every-
did read the responses to
it was everything you said to
Even if we
me.
get funding in place, there's some clarification needed on this before I can review and approve any kind of list. And just so everybody's aware, I was talking to them yesterday, and you're looking at about 2 million plus for the first phase payout. So I know they're closing on land daily.
And you're okay with that?
Well, I haven't seen the building.
You
When I
haven't seen the
building,
request yet.
I mean, I know approximately where they're spending the money. Most of it's in land ag, but then there's probably 500,000-600,000 in engineering and some other miscellaneous expenses that's gonna probably add up to
And-
an excessive.
Fred, when we get billings for the property,
Mhm.
okay, we're not paying for any of it until we have title. The
We will
title
have
is-
an excess, we'll have a recorded deed and a title clearance policy.
Right.
And we'll have lien waivers for all the vendors, and all of it will.
Did you
run-
decide how far down you're gonna go on that ladder of waivers?
I think every vendor, every subcontractor will provide it.
Okay, do you want their primary suppliers, also subcontractor primary suppliers?
You know what, let's see what we get, and my intention is to run it through Andrew. It's at least the first couple, to make sure we're getting what we need. To clarify, and then we can discuss it too, of course.
Okay, because our intent is to make sure that everybody gets paid.
Yeah, we don't want it to end somebody file a lien against us.
Well, it would be hard for them to do on a road project, a governmental entity, but once again, we want to make sure everybody's being paid
Right, exactly.
all the way down this ladder.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So if when do you anticipate, I guess, the first monthly invoice to come in?
2 weeks.
Probably the day you approve that.
When, assuming we get the bids on the 14th, when do you anticipate funding being in place?
Well, it depends. Some of the banks are requesting to be able to provide the loan as bank qualified. So bank qualified means it's gonna be under $10 million per year. We've already done $9 million from the jail bond refinance in January. So that would mean we wouldn't be able to close like that portion of the loan until January of 22. Which, I mean, obviously, we're only talking a few weeks, but I mean, we're still, you know, I'm sure they're gonna want to request paying their carrying costs or whatever they advance. And I don't know if that's what they were gonna do with this first draw anyway, for what they were submitting or not. But I mean, that may be something that has to be discussed. Because in essence, if he's buying stuff right now and he's literally had I guess we're talking two different things. If you're buying from a vendor, you may have 30 days to pay, and you may not have expended any money. But if we're buying land and we've literally closed with the title company, I mean, we've wired the money and it's exchanged hands and it's gone. So he would have had to advance that or pay that from somewhere. So I don't know if
They were wiring money yesterday.
okay, so I don't know if that amount, we would need to contact his bank and get a daily interest factor and know exactly what it was, so we can pinpoint it and not pay a dime more, or a penny more, but,
I'm not sure they're after that. I mean, basically, once I get it, they expect us to remit payment in a couple of weeks.
okay.
14 days.
But, I mean, best case scenario would be to get it done before the end of the year, but you're working around Christmas and everybody's schedules and everything else, if they don't care if it's bank qualified or not. Worst case scenario would be that it would be somewhere around probably the first or second week of January that they would be signed. And I mean, as soon as we sign the papers and they can get it posted on their system, we could immediately do an advance, you know, on that line of credit. So I'd say if we're at the 8th now, within 45 days max. 30 days, honestly, from the date that we get the bids to probably, be able to close it.
So worst case scenario, let's say, for example, that we received a monthly invoice today, just a theoretical example, and we knew we weren't going to be able to pay that for, say, 45 days for that example. In our resolution, and then also in the HCA, is anybody familiar with any penalty that the county would have for delayed payment? I don't necessarily recall any specific language that talks to that. Now, I can see Baxter coming back and saying that they want some of those carry costs, but, and I anticipate this is only an issue for this first
That's,
payment.
It's.
yeah,
the
because everything
initial
else will be in place, and
problem
even,
that we have to get over.
Yeah.
even if we do a bank qualifier where we actually have two separate loans, like say a $9 million and 4.4, we'll obviously see that we're getting close to that, $9 million threshold, and then we can, immediately enact that, 4.4 to equal the entire amount, and not skip a beat on anything like that. So it's, yes, this first initial draw will be the one that may be delayed just, maybe 2 weeks.
Okay, so after you get done reviewing it, then we'll talk about it.
Sure. I have, I do recall reviewing the email previously. I'll take another look at it and get you something today.
Okay. Moving on, we got the approval for the use of comp time with the EMA director. I know she was wanting to get paid, comp time. I think she approached you, Ashley.
Yeah, so, every year, we set an end date for being able to do stuff in the current fiscal year. So even though the fiscal year ends 11/30, like in this instance, 12/10 is the last time that you can make any appropriate changes to carry into or to be reflected in the current year. So, we have to make all claims paid, everything else, plus any kind of modifications to payroll system for benefit time, done within that time period. So Kelly said, or is requested or informed me that she feels that she has comp hours that she's earned from the COVID situation that she wanted to use in lieu of her sick time and vacation time that she has taken through the course of the year. She sent me the contract, which it doesn't really state anything, and I passed that along to you, Jim, and then also the dates that she was requesting to move. I also sent, I think, to all three of you the information we found about the prior director, that the payout that was in question whenever he left, actually, there was a formal letter that was signed by all three commissioners that was in regards to his sick time that he had accrued throughout his entire employment, plus personal days that he was allowed to have. So that large sum that was given to him at that was for the sick time. It's actually full sick hours divided by 2. You get paid out half of what you accumulate. So that check was for sick time and for personal days, and didn't reflect anything with comp time. We look back further over his time period, and unfortunately there's no documentation that references comp time for him at any period for the year and a half or 2 years that he was the director. So I don't know if that's been a past practice or not. Terry Watts, who was the animal control director, when he left, his time that was paid out was sick and vacation time that he had earned. It wasn't comp time from what we could tell either, because of the change in IMRF. He wasn't allowed to get a lump sum payment because the rules had changed since Mr. Lamb left and then when Terry left. So they had to be paid out in monthly increments so they could be reported to IMRF in the same manner. So there's nothing that states that it can be used, but I mean, there's nothing that says that it can't be. So I guess what I requested is that I need some kind of formal determination from the commissioners to decide if she is allowed to use this.
Could you just explain to me in this scenario what comp time actually is?
So comp time would be like time earned in lieu of overtime.
Okay.
So
that's
some offices, some offices will say, okay, I will pay you your time and a half, in overtime pay, or they will provide the employee comp time at time and a half for those hours that they receive, but then they can take off, like in blocks or whatever else. So in essence, if you earned 8 hours of comp time or 7 hours of comp time, that could be an additional day off that you would be able to take with that, and then it doesn't come out of your sick or a personal or vacation bank. So she's saying that she's earned that, and I don't, and again, I'm not the attorney, I didn't grow up the contract, and it doesn't say anything about comp time, but she does keep comp time on her pay. So there's comp time hours that are logged, but I don't know if they're valid.
Does she ever get paid time and a half?
Nothing, no, nothing.
Not
I
salary,
mean, because she's a salaried employee,
Right.
so.
So do any
that's-
of our other salaried employees get overtime?
I don't believe so. I mean, I believe that the conversation with Terry Watts was he maybe brought something like that before you guys, or before the commissioners, and it was determined that he's the director, he's a salaried employee, and the hours go with the job is what goes with the salary.
Right.
And then I do know that Kevin Harris has been, I think, told the same thing, and his, now as the animal control director, is that the job is the job, whether if it takes you out from 8 to 4,
Right.
or if it takes you out on a Sunday from 2 to 10. That's part of the job, and that's part of the
So while we're
responsibility.
talking about animal control, there's a $6,000 stipend that goes to animal control. Is that used for comp time? Is that used for overtime?
Yeah, actually, the other day when you brought this up, I was totally confused, okay? I didn't know what you were talking about. And Tim's right. I'm not gonna touch on this because I thought I was losing my mind, but I was looking. And I remember Terry came in, he had a $3,500 stipend for, I don't know for what reason.
Okay.
He came in and he was talking about all his overtime he's been putting in. The board agreed to keep that up to $6,000 to cover this overtime, quote, comp, whatever the hell you wanna call it, to address it. And that's in the 2019 budget, which I distributed yesterday, okay? So that's where, Brett came down the hall yesterday and he asked me that one of them thought it was about vacation, one of them thought it was about comp time. What did I think it was? I wasn't sure.
Mhm.
So I just said, where do you get this about that you deserve this as a salaried employee?
Mhm.
It's a simple question. I mean, it's a cut to the chase. So 2003, you're absolutely, so one is animal control, what's the stipend for? And I remember specifically what it's for.
I didn't
The
research that.
the
so I
stipend
can't
for
speak to
animal
that.
control does not go to Kevin. The stipend
It's in the
for
budget.
animal,
That goes to Dr. Gordon Ryan.
Gordon Ryan.
Yeah,
That's for
he's
his,
the actual administrator.
Yeah.
That's the $500
That he has a
a month he
license
receives.
to
Yeah,
use
so
medication.
I didn't know I was supposed to
But if
research
you
that. so
remember,
I
Ron was
okay,
going to bump that up
so
to
I
10
would've-
grand.
Something crazy, yeah.
Could have told you what that.
and we
I
got
could
it
print out
down.
the
Well,
CL that told you what that meant.
Okay, and then so I just said, what makes you think that you can get it as a salaried person? So this file from 2003, and you're right, I was here, I know what happened back then with the deals, okay? 2003, on his email, 2010, Steve, comp earned 70.25 hours, 109 point, it says comp used, 68, 70, 30, 70, 53, 35, 62, 16. So there's a file. So I'm assuming if she worked under him and saw him doing it, she just assumed. I don't think she cared one way or another, but that's not me here to say. But I got the,
Steve was an employee for, I don't know how many years before he
Under Alan.
Yeah, under Alan
Yeah.
for, I don't know.
Yeah.
Ken, was it 10 years?
I think he was only director for like.
Yeah, it was about 10 years.
Okay, and then he
So-
became director. So
Right.
under our handbook, you're allowed to cash in your vacation, or any, sick time that you've accrued when you're an employee, but upon termination. So that's what Steve, my understanding, this is what Steve did. That's what he was cashing in. He was an employee for 10 years. Now, he didn't lose that, sick time or vacation time whenever he became a department head. Kelly, on the other hand, was an employee for about 1 year. Then she became the department head. So whatever she accrued in that 1 year would probably be what she could cash out. Now, the comp time, I agree with Tim. You're salaried,
that's what it was.
and, you work overtime, there is no comp. You get paid when you're sick. You get paid when you're on vacation. You don't lose that. So I don't see how she could claim any of that. Now she could claim, I think, what she earned while she was an employee under Steve, and I don't know how long of a time she had been an employee under Steve, that was before I came in, I believe. But, because I think she came in, we appointed her the very first year that I was here in 13. I think it was in June or July we appointed her. But anyway, as far as any other, from that point on, she's salaried. And that's like any other salaried employee, you know.
That's how the salary makeup is. You get
Yeah.
the job done. That's how it works.
I understand. I mean, I guess I could try to go back and research and find out, like you just mentioned, whenever she was an employee, and maybe what
If there
those
is-
pay
if
records,
that's there.
if she would have earned some kind of comp in 2012
If she had any,
or
as
2013.
an employee.
Okay.
And now the second part of this, I believe then it goes back to the handbook. From what I understand, is what Rhett was saying, if it's not listed in the contract, then the handbook applies.
I mean, that's how
The
I always.
handbook says upon termination, then you can cash out.
Mhm.
So,
If
That's-
we own it, and own it.
if, yeah,
We have, I'm gonna treat her fairly, if she's not entitled, she's not entitled.
So as an employee, if you leave, not as a partner, but as an employee, you leave the department, then you can, what's the term?
you're cashed out, your vacation is, determine how much vacation. How much time, yeah.
And sick leave, do they?
Well, it
Prorated,
depends. That's a twofold question, because if an individual is vested in IMRF, they're allowed to convert that sick leave and bank it into their IMRF retirement.
Even if they're not eligible to retire at the time.
Yes, if they're fully vested. But if they're not vested, like I had an employee that had worked for 6 years, that employee was then in turn was paid out half of their accumulated sick time. So you took,
Because they weren't vested.
because they weren't fully vested in it. But if they're vested,
Which is 10 years.
which is 10 years, well, yeah, tier 2, which that's what most people are, but you may have some people that would be tier. I think they can choose. Now, they can say, no, I don't want to do the vesting in IMRF, I want my money. I think you can pay, I don't think it's an either or. You get the option. But it's basically the full accumulated sick time divided by 2. So you get paid half of that upon your termination.
If you're not vested. If you're vested,
You can do either or still, I think. We'd have to verify that with Julie, but like Steve Land was an employee for 10 years. He chose to,
And he was a tier 1.
he was a tier 1, so he chose to get paid out that sick time rather than roll it over into his IRA.
to extend his
Yes,
IRA.
yes, yeah. So,
And that was what he earned while he was an employee
Mhm.
under Al. So,
because my understanding is like, I believe Amanda has the situation where she has accrued sick time from when she was
an employee,
an employee of the clerk's office.
Yeah.
So it's still sitting out there, so whenever she retires, I think either she could get paid half that time.
Well, she could use it as
Or
credit.
Or she can credit it to IMRF.
But as a department head,
You can't earn it after you've been named the department.
Well, at that point, you're.
At that point, your salary, and it's like, here's,
so if you leave with
the
75
handbook,
days on the sick leave on the books, you can either extend your time with IMRF or it's just on.
well, you get paid half.
you.
and then I think the handbook says upon
Yeah.
leaving.
So, kind of, you got a unique situation in that, because, with people being elevated from a.
Sure.
Very position to that.
So,
So I'm assuming there's gonna be no action taken, so.
It's clearer now than it was.
I need to research this and see if she's accrued any time as an employee. And then I can then tell her that she would be eligible to use that kind of time
Oh, I see what you're-
in lieu of like a vacation or sick time, like moving, like, let's just round numbers. She has 21 hours of comp time that she had accrued as an employee. So then could she then in turn, approach the board to say, I'd like to use these 21 hours in lieu of 3 sick days?
well, the
I
question,
don't know,
I know what
because
you're
she's still
saying, but
employed here.
then that's just it.
Okay,
So
or you're
that's
gonna
where-
say that she can only do
Only on-
that if she leaves?
only on separate.
Well, it's not us, it's what the handbook says.
Okay,
So. and
I just need to be able to make sure.
Right, and so let's look into the handbook,
Okay.
let's review that,
Okay.
review whatever, whatever she's earned as an employee,
Okay,
and then let's review the handbook,
Okay.
and then
Okay.
we should
Right,
solve it.
because we don't want to start a situation where
Right.
people are cashing out sick days. from
prior to,
years ago.
okay,
You know, that's when they leave service.
okay, I'll research and get back to you.
You got nothing else to do, right?
Okay, next item on the agenda is the approval, or accept the 2019 audit. We were all given the 2019 audit, we were all given the 2020 audit. I see the motion for that.
Make a motion to accept the 2019 audit.
I've got a question on that one. And this is from my own clarification, I don't know. Back in 2019, I may not be right, but I think I am. I think this is the budget, or the audit where the PVC episode happened with the comptroller and all that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what are we doing here? Has that already been turned into comptroller or what?
Yeah, Kim, you want to address that?
Sure. Yeah, the audit that the PVC submitted was not accepted by the comptroller's office. It was the wrong basis of accounting. It could not be combined with the countywide financial statements. Because of that, there were pension accruals not available in the financial statements and other items missing in the financial statements that the comptroller's office requires. An interesting, I guess maybe interesting to me, an interesting note is the comptroller's office, issued a rule. They actually wanted to outlaw cash basis accounting, period, for all entities, because governmental entities were not properly showing their payables and governments were upside down, and nobody could tell that by looking at the financials. So they did attempt back in 2016 to outlaw cash basis. They weren't successful at that because of the lobbying efforts of the Illinois CPA Society and other groups that you can't simply outlaw a basis of accounting. It is a legal basis of accounting. However, the comptroller was successful at saying whatever basis of accounting you were in 2016, that is your basis moving forward. So if your accrual in 2016, your accrual from here on out, you're not permitted to go back to the cash basis of accounting. Also, if your cash basis and in the future you ever convert to accrual, you're never allowed to go back. So that's how they're slowly weeding out the cash basis of accounting folks. And I think a logical question is, well, why would we be cash based, or why would we be accrual basis if we have the option to be cash? Well, you don't necessarily have the option to be cash when you're dealing with bonds, and like the banks right now are reviewing your financials for some financing. They're not going to work with cash basis statements. They're very in tune with the difference between cash and accrual, and they want to know if you owe people at the end of the year. They want to know your pension liabilities. They want to know what they're getting into. So in doing the previous jail bonds and things of that nature, cash basis was just not going to be an option for you moving forward. So after the rejection of the PVC financial statements, then I was requested to get the PVC data for 2019, do the accrual basis, be able to include them in financial statements, and then reissue government-wide financial statements. I think that it's a topic that the county board really needs to get a grasp on and really understand that the component unit belongs to Williamson County, and the responsibility for their financials rests with you, and the presentation of their financials rests with you. And I think through the process, I hope that the board has come to understand that the separation in mind that has developed, they're separate from you, you're separate from us, you can't tell us what to do. That is something that developed internally in your mind. That's not the foundation in the comptroller's office or in any outside purview. You don't exist without them, they don't exist without you. You're tied together, you're the primary government. And so having these financials and having them on time and having them in place on the right basis of accounting, that responsibility rests with you. And if you don't understand that, then I think it's a good thing to spend more time talking about that. Maybe having another phone call with the comptroller to go further into the responsibility section that helps the county board understand who's responsible for what and when, for timing, for putting together a government-wide set of financial statements. If you're not familiar with it, if you don't understand it, then it is important to pause and call and ask those questions. Having an internal process developed, and then you work what you're doing around that, this is the result you get.
So, this window you said, let me get in my brain here. So in order to turn in the county government audit to the comptroller, you must have the PBC part attached to it.
The PBC is part of Williamson County government. They are a component unit.
Okay, well, here's
And it's not simply attaching it. It is not attaching it. It must be included in your financial statements and identified as a component unit.
Okay, the question that I've had people ask or heard them ask, and I've really heard a clear answer. You were the auditor for PBC for quite a while, correct?
For as long as they asked me to do a separate audit for them, what they had asked for was a separate standalone set of financial statements to come and talk with them. That would be separate and apart from the component unit inclusion in the countywide audit.
Okay.
So they wanted a separate booklet just for them, primarily to show to a former county commissioner who kept accusing them of misappropriation, of wrongdoing, of things of that nature that weren't going on. They did not feel that showing them and auditing that information in the component unit, in the government-wide statement, that it would give them a separate booklet to hand to somebody and say, hey, look, you're here, but we also have a separate document prepared for us.
Yeah, unfortunately, I remember those days very well. So the question that somebody asked me one of the meetings before, so there were apparently some, again, I want clarity because I want to know. I mean, if they're not telling the truth, then I want to know. There were some late audits from the PBC, back when you were working with the PBC, and if that is the case, then if you had to have the PBC included in the government audit, what did you send to comptroller if they were late?
Well, and I think that is a question that I believe has been asked and answered, and I'll be happy to go over that again. The information necessary to include in the government-wide statement of the component unit, that information was the financial information, which consists of general ledgers and bank confirmations and things of that nature, were forwarded to me shortly after the end of each fiscal year from Doug Williams because of the requirement to do the component unit statement. That information would come from Pat Barker's office for the, again, general ledgers, income statement, balance sheet, bank confirmations, any items of that nature to do the component unit similar to a fund in the county. When it came to the separate standalone report that they wanted, I was not able to do their standalone report until they had signed their own engagement letter and had agreed that, hey, I want this report from you to us. Those could not be done until they signed the engagement letters themselves. So after those engagement letters were signed, I was able to generate reports, the standalone reports for them. It's a similar process that just occurred for 2019.
So
Pat Barger sends me over the information separately on a particular timeline to do the work to include it in a government-wide financial statement. If they want to step beyond and they want a standalone report for them, I can do that, but I can only do that after they have signed their own engagement letters that say, hey, we want you to issue this report to us. To me, this is not a confusing situation. I think it's been intentionally made confusing, but it's not.
So the standalone is, okay, I get that part. But if the PBC, whatever the reason is, they're not getting information or whatever, and it's late, and it's gotta be a part of the
It's late for what? It's late for what? There is no timeline for their standalone report. The audited financial statements for the government-wide for the component unit status occurred with the timing of the regular county audit, except for 2019 when there was no information shared.
So, all the information PVC that I think I heard you say you couldn't get or something, then I'm just confused what was sent in on behalf of the government if PVC has to be a part of it. I can't. I guess I don't. I think that's where the PVC was asking what was sent in the year that we were late.
I don't think that there's an acknowledgement. I don't know if this is helpful or not, but I don't think there is an acknowledgement of the information in December of each year that Doug Williams would have Pat Barber send to me and Doug would send to me directly with their financials. I don't think there's an understanding, or maybe people don't want to understand it, but there's a batch of financial information sent in December to do the component unit inclusion in the countywide financial statement. Now, if they want a letter or a report addressed to them directly, that's outside the scope of that component unit inclusion in the countywide statement. Again, not a problem, but you have to sign your own engagement letters in order for me to say, okay, now I can do this and generate this report just for you and come talk to you as a board.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, Doug, I think it might have been Doug asked a question when he was all worked up, and I don't recall ever hearing.
Well, Doug is the one who sent me the information directly. He had a list to fill at the end of each year. It's very similar to the list that I gave to Jim for the 2019 with the general ledgers, the balance sheet, the income statement, all of those items. Those come from Pat Barber's office, who Pat does a great job.
Kim, let me ask one question. Maybe, I don't know if it'll help clarify or help confuse. The PBC responsibility for their audit, they don't necessarily have a timeline, like what Brent was talking about. Is that a correct statement?
They don't have a due date in the comptroller's office.
Okay, right. But we have the due date. And so what, now for the 2019 audit, they didn't get their auditor until it was, what was the date when they contracted with Dean? It was in.
I don't really know.
Okay, but I think it was in 2020 or it was this year. It was at the beginning of this year, I believe. Maybe it was late last year.
Right.
And I think maybe in February this year, they signed the engagement letter with Dean.
Right.
But so that's one of the reasons what delayed our audit is what I'm getting at, because we do have a timeline, and our audit is due at the end of May. Am I correct on that?
Yes, with an extension available.
Right, with an extension of 60 days. So, so our audit would not be complete until we get theirs in with ours. And so, but it's past the due date, past the extension.
Okay.
So, and that's the only point I was trying to make. I don't know if that helps.
No, you're right. Now it does confuse you more because, I mean, it is complicated. I'm not an auditor. I don't know. I mean, so if you have to have theirs attached with ours to send in, and they didn't get you the information on time, you had to get a continuance or whatever y'all did with comptroller extensions. If back in the years they say they weren't completed on time, what was sent into the comptroller if it has to be attached with ours? Was there an extension or what?
Well, I can answer the same question over and over again. And, you know, if you're not at the point of accepting accepting the answer, there's very little I can do about that. The financial information to do the component unit work was sent to me in December of every year from Doug Williams' direction. Either he's forwarding me the information or asking Pat Barger to send over the information. The separate report that they wanted on their own, I can only do that after they sign their own engagement letters.
You're talking about if you,
It's
when
important to have it standalone.
you work for them, you're talking about.
Yes. At this point, here's the important thing for the county board to understand. In the engagement letters prior to 2019, and I think moving forward in 2020 and beyond, you're going to have to make this decision. Every single engagement letter started off with, we will audit the primary statement, the government-wide statement, the component unit. All of that was included in your engagement letters and in your representation letters. That was the request.
Well, I'll admit,
That's why I ask for every December. I go to every department, including the PVC, and say, hey, give me your financials, give me this general ledger, give me this information. And it's a fund in the county's audit report.
okay, I'm gonna try one more time.
Now,
So that,
2019, there were different decisions made and wanted to do the component unit audit separately. This is the result that we're dealing with. So from 2020 and beyond, I think the county board has to, one, understand the responsibility for the component unit financial statements rests with the county board. No matter what you do, there is no way to dissolve the relationship between the two or your responsibility for that financial information unless the component unit dissolves. That's the only thing that takes them out of you being the primary government.
Now, Kim, when you get their audit, you do need time to review their audit. It's not that you just get it and then send it without looking at it. Is that correct?
Correct. There is an auditing standard, if they use section C600, okay? And it requires primary government auditors to review the work of any component unit auditors to make sure that it's on the correct basis of accounting, that it is going to be blendable with the countywide government financial statement, that all of the components are there, all of the disclosures are there. There is a requirement to do that if you're a primary government auditor.
And that takes,
Getting the information on the last day, that does us no good because of the review process. That has to be done.
and how long does that review process normally take?
Well, it could take a couple of weeks. If there are missing components and things have to be redone, it could take a couple of months. If the work is, in this case, the work was not going to be utilized, there was no way to utilize the work in 2019 because of the different basis of accounting and things like that.
So in
So
moving,
it has to be redone.
so in moving forward, with knowing that the due date, for the audit is
Yeah.
May 28th, you would probably, it'd be fair to say, you would probably need that
By March
PVC.
31st. And that's actually what the PVC is.
By March
discussed and
31st,
said that we were
April
going to
1st,
make
yeah.
and get that
Yeah.
to her by that time, so she
Yeah.
has time to review any changes. to
That's,
that.
that's the point. I was-
That's been discussed by the board itself.
Okay,
But
That's fair.
right.
That gives, at least, close to 8 weeks,
Sure.
on the actual due date. And if we come up with any kind of,
Yeah,
obviously,
right.
we're gonna do an extension almost every year. But that gives plenty of time for them to, correspond to each other and make any appropriate changes. So, yeah, it's.
But
that has been
moving
discussed
forward,
in
I
the past.
think we know the path to iron is supposed to probably out.
That was already a discussion point, that's already been agreed upon by the.
well, I guess I'm not
Auditor.
very smart,
PVC.
but, the hypothetical, let's say the chairman of the PVC was sick, which it was the case. And you didn't get the proper information when you worked for them because he was sick, which, did happen, I'm sure. He was real sick. So you didn't have the information to put in with the county's stuff to send in. So what am I missing? What, if that was not done and you couldn't get information from them, what was sent to the comptroller? Was there extension on the PVC side or what?
Well, I'll state it again.
You're not stating what I'm
In
asking.
December.
You're not stating what I'm, never mind, I'm good. You're not stating what I'm asking, so, sign.
Well, in December, each year, financial statements and other information from Pat Barber's office were forwarded to me for inclusion in the county's government-wide financial statement. For the PBC and the separate report that they want for themselves, there were additional items requested, and including the engagement letters, including all of that process. And I can only do that process after those engagement letters were signed. So there just has to be a distinction between, there are really two levels, two different audits going on, one on the government-wide level, and then one on the standalone level. And work for an individual client like that, you have to have the engagement letter first.
Okay, well,
Okay, I have a motion on the table.
So do we get to hear anything about the audit, any particular findings? We do this every year. I mean, are we gonna just run it through, not hear anything, but I know we got it. We got a book yesterday. It's gonna take longer to, I mean, is there anything particularly new findings that we need to know about?
Okay, so here's my issue, and that's what I asked, I think I said this to Drew, but I've had two banks that, we posted these because they needed the information. So right now on our website, they say 2019 audit, 2020 audit draft.
Yeah.
They were like, I'm like, nothing's gonna change. I mean, it is what it is, but, because it's already been submitted. But the question that I have is, as a board, are you required to accept those audits? I mean, they've already been sent to the comptroller. So, I mean, is this just a formality, just to be on the record type thing, or what? So, if they're not required, I mean, we can remove the word draft off of them because they've been submitted. I mean, I just need to know one way or another.
I would say this is what I'd like to propose. Let's go ahead and approve. You're correct. It doesn't change it, whether anything in the audit, whether we approve it, whether we don't approve it. Let's go through the motion. If you want it official, we can vote on it and approve it, and it'll be on the website. If at a later time you have a question concerning the audit, we'll set up a meeting and we can discuss anything in the audit, because nothing's going to change it.
No, it's not gonna change, but you know what?
But we can
But
discuss.
if something comes up in an audit, it's gonna come down on us guys. I mean, it's gonna get, if there's something new, like brewing somewhere, we've always been told about it for
You can have a
17
meeting.
years.
May I ask Drew a question? I mean,
To extend the contract.
I want to know, is it a requirement to approve those? Or because they've already been submitted, I mean, and signed off by the chair, I mean, and submitted to the comptroller, I mean, are they, I mean.
That was my original question. To me, it's almost like Amanda's reports when in everybody's reports that we just accept. You know, we don't necessarily vote on. But if you want to vote on them, I don't care to make it official.
We voted on them for years.
Okay, well then let's vote on it then. We got a motion.
I made a motion.
Is that a second?
No.
Okay,
But is it a requirement? That's what I.
it doesn't matter if we run it through, we'll just do it. I'll second it. So roll call.
Jim Marlowe,
Yay.
Brent Gentry,
Present.
Tim Axon.
Make
And
a motion to accept 2020 audit.
I'll second it.
Jim Marlowe,
Yay.
Brent Gentry,
Present.
Tim Atkinson.
Okay. Now, if at any time, if you want to discuss it, we can set up another meeting and we can discuss whatever you want at that meeting concerning the audit. So we'll just do that. And now we can go ahead and,
So you can go in and remove the draft parentheses, I guess, off the back of those two items.
okay. That's all I have. Is there anything anybody has on anything? We open this up to the public.
I would like to know what all the big deal was about YouTubing or not YouTubing or presuming and for one person and all that. What's the big deal? I want to know what the big deal is, because we agreed to do this. What is the big deal? If we don't want YouTube, I'll FaceTime live at 1,000. I don't care one way or another. That's what we agreed to. Why was there so much pushback on this meeting not to do that? When it states right there at the bottom, I like an explanation, because in my book, Zooming for one person and cutting out the public is absolutely ridiculous.
Well, the only thing is, the Zoom, we can't Zoom and we can't stream at the same time.
That's correct.
The YouTube actually is not live. YouTube is recorded and then it's posted the next day.
People are watching, that's
It's
getting
live
correct.
right now. There's
Oh, we're
people
watching it right now.
Okay, I was told it was, not live.
24 hours it goes on to the
And
internet.
that's a
After-
discussion I had with Drew
After
yesterday.
we're done broadcasting it and it's streaming live, after that's done, you can't access it until the next day.
Okay, well, that's
But
fine.
people can watch it while it's live.
That's
That's
fine.
fine.
I don't have a problem with that at all. Okay,
And the only reason I said Zoom was so that we could have Ken on the camera because you.
that was,
What-
that
what-
was.
Because it was my
It's-
understanding,
it's no
Brett, it
big
was my
deal.
understanding that when Kim was addressing the board, you wanted her either in person or on Zoom.
Yeah.
So Stephanie came in my office the other
In
morning.
person preferably, but.
Well, she came in my office the other morning and she said, hey, would you rather do YouTube or Zoom? And I said, I'd rather do Zoom because I want Kim on the camera.
But
So I'm not exactly sure.
When the camera was brought in, I brought the camera in whenever I first was elected back in 12. And we agreed it was only for our regular board meetings. Now, along the way, we started incorporating it. We never really said to do it, but it's fine. I don't care. It's fine to have every
You
meeting.
guys did say earlier
We
this year that you
agreed to
wanted
it.
all the
Oh.
meetings.
Okay, well, that's fine. I
And
don't
that's,
care.
fine.
that's why.
That's
that's why
fine.
we're-
So,
I will add that I don't live in Marion, so when there are things I need to cover, especially if I've got something, someday like I do today. Today it works out, it's all in Williamson County, but it's very handy to have that available to watch.
Okay.
Because I don't want to wait another day.
sure.
to Tell them what you're doing.
That's fine. I have absolutely no problem with it being on this. We definitely weren't trying to conceal anything.
Right, exactly.
It's my understanding that.
So,
Brett
so
wanted
good
her
job
on
if you're
Zoom.
doing them all.
Well, that's good. Okay. But we've had meetings before. We've had other people Zoom in. And, you know, we've had Tony Baxter, we've had attorneys Zoom in and everything. So,
That's accurate, but Jim, if you do Zoom, you had to put the bottom, you can Zoom in by this address, if it's gonna be a Zoom for people have, it's called transparency, and I don't know what the big deal is about this meeting, but here's the deal, guys, is that there's nothing to hide. Okay, I mean, Ken,
I
whether Ken
take
is,
exception that
we
you're
weren't-
saying that we're trying to hide
I
something.
wasn't trying to hide anything.
I mean, are you trying to accuse me of trying to hide something?
Yeah.
Because
I'm saying-
quite honestly, it was your idea to have Kim Zoom in. We're talking audit and
budget's over, man.
all this other stuff.
What difference is there between that phone call and her sitting there answering on Zoom?
Well, that's kind of what I
Well,
thought
that's-
whenever you said you wanted.
It'll
her
be here in
on
person, that's all the problem, doesn't it? Stop that.
Drew, you had a comment?
Couple of comments. First, maybe best not to have a large argument while you're live, just putting that out there. Second, I don't think anybody sitting up here or anybody in this room is against transparency. The issue I think that we have is with the agenda. I've spoken with Stephanie this morning. When we anticipate having a Zoom call in the future, we won't put this at the bottom of the agenda. That way there's no violation of OMA. There's nothing that says we have to put it on YouTube. There's nothing that says we have to live stream it on YouTube either. It is more convenient, I grant that. But as long as the meeting is recorded and then uploaded, you know, you're complying with you know, what's, I won't say required, but what you say you're going to do. And that's the issue. It's not required that you put this on YouTube, but if you say you're going to do that, well, now you have to actually do that. The bigger issue, I think, here, and this may be a limit that we can't fix, is the technology issue. I thought yesterday when I spoke with you that we couldn't live stream and Zoom.
Right.
From my conversation with Stephanie this morning, it turns out we can't record and Zoom. We have to do one or the other is the problem. I know we're limited by our technological capabilities with the phone or the internet or whatever it is, but maybe there's some way we can try to work with those people and try to get away where we can do both those things.
That's what I was gonna suggest, is let's go ahead and figure out how we can do both.
Yeah.
They have told us that we can do both,
Right.
but they have told us that we're gonna have to upgrade our equipment and it's gonna be $3,000 or so to do so.
Okay.
So it is capable of doing just
Well, I
that.
think we're doing enough things now at a level to where we do need that technology. And
He said this morning he can
Right.
give us a quote at any time. But we are gonna have to have
So we're
different
always
equipment to
recorded
do
on
both.
that, right, so, but anyway, I'm in favor of doing
Well, I mean,
both.
here's the thing, we agreed to it, Chris agreed to it. I just want to, look, I have tried for years to get the public involved in government. It's like people don't care. Tim, what I said was, we as a board had nothing to hide. So why not just do it? We have nothing to
I
hide.
mean, I brought it in whenever I was first elected, it wasn't here
None of
before.
us, none of us.
I'm fully for it.
It
I'm
wasn't
on
here
record, I'm
before.
on record right now, fully for it.
I mean, people just seem to not get engaged in government, it just drives me crazy that you don't want to get involved in it.
All right, then what we'll do is we'll wait for that bid to come in, we'll take a look at it, and we'll go from there.
When you say record, what about it? I understand, you said you can record, but not record
Is there
what?
anything else from anybody?
You can like
You need a
video
motion to
record it,
adjourn?
Need a motion?
not necessarily
So
live stream
moved.
on the internet, but just like video record, video camera, basically.
I'll second it.
Jim Marlowe.
Yeah.
Brent Gentry. Tim Atkinson.
I thought you were talking about like a cassette recorder.
Mm.
You said record, but yeah, we should.
We are doing